Vice Television. You know, in our travels around the world conducting interviews, now in many countries and continents, over these past 3 decades, we've learned a lot about marriage. And one of the questions that we are often asked is there such a thing as a 7-year itch? You know, books have been written about it, movies have been written about it. And the answer to the question is there is. There are other points in a marriage, and we just want to highlight those, and then we'll focus on the 7-year itch today. The first critical time in a marriage is the first year. Very tough, adjusting to each other, how you squeeze the toothpaste, living with someone else in a house. Tough time. A lot of separations and divorce occur as a result of the first year. The second key time is somewhere between 6 and 8, or as people have affectionately referred to it, the 7-year itch, and we'll come back to that. The third critical point in a marriage tends to happen around year 15, 16. You know, kids are oftentimes in school now. You're trying to manage home, kids, work outside the home, that sort of thing. A lot of pressure on a marriage, and oftentimes marriages get in trouble around the 15th, 16th year. Then interestingly enough, we found 30 to be a pretty critical time. You know, you say, well, wow, people have made it that long and now they're having problems at 30. Well, think of the empty nest syndrome. Think about other life adjustments that you make to getting older, perhaps changing a job to your final career direction, that sort of thing, a lot of pressures. But today, we wanted to focus on the 7-year itch. The 7-year itch, we believe, is a real thing, and there are some advice, there are about 7 pieces of advice that we'd like to share with you about how to manage and deal with the 7-year itch.
The first and most important piece of advice is the fact that infatuation and temptation with another person is absolutely normal. You look at the waitress in the restaurant, you look at the guy that goes and gets your car, and you think, wow, and all of a sudden you get intrigued, or you get intrigued with your dentist or your doctor or whatever. In other words, it's a normal thing to have that temptation.
But the key point is really number 2, is most successfully married couples and people involved in successful relationships don't act on the infatuation. You know, trust is at the heart of every successful relationship, and marriage in particular. And when you lose that trust, you lose everything. So it's okay to be infatuated, perfectly normal. Perfectly normal. You know, a guy told us one time, I got married, I got a marriage license, but I didn't give away my looking license. It's perfectly natural and perfectly normal to look, just don't act on that infatuation, because that could be the beginning of the end of the destruction of your relationship.
And number 3 is really important to take note of. If you have reoccurring and continuing episodes and fantasies of this infatuation, then you probably need to look deeper into that relationship and understand that there is some type of problem existing in there, because to have reoccurring and continuing fantasies and infatuations with other people is really not good for your relationship.
Probably an indication something's wrong with your relationship, unfortunately. The next one, we have come to coin the term turn the corner. You know, turn the corner. And that really means you got to get past this point in your marriage, this glitch, this bump in the road, or sometimes it's a reservoir. You got to get past that. So what you do is you deal with it. You deal with it head on. You start talking to each other about it. You start laying it out there on the table, so to speak. You cannot let this stuff get submerged into your subconscious or push it away like it doesn't matter, because it will only get worse and fester over time. Turn the corner. Deal with it, in other words.
And number 5 is important to really understand, and that's that love takes hard work. It's those simple things you do day in and day out that mount up, that matter, that make a difference in your lives together. And you build on that relationship, you work on the positive aspects of that love and that relationship, and it really brings everything back into play and gets that marriage and that relationship back on track.
Absolutely. You know, there are a lot of things that you and your spouse or your mate can do to improve or fix certain aspects of your marriage. But sometimes you can't do it by yourself. You know, sometimes you can go to the back of a book, say like ours, where we have exercises that you can engage in building a love that lasts. And that will work for a lot of people to re-engage the conversation, so to speak. But that doesn't always work, and sometimes you just have to seek professional help. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're talking about a relationship here that you apparently have said is worth saving, and I want to make it work, and my mate wants to make it work. So making it work becomes your goal, and sometimes you have to seek outside help to do that. There are a lot of very, very good, some extraordinary marriage counselors out there who do really solid work based upon the best research available. They're great therapists. They get people to work together. They can help you make it work. And what you got to get past is this notion that, oh, well, we can work it out ourselves. Sometimes you can't. Okay? Sometimes you gotta seek professional help. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And if it saves your relationship, so be it.
And the last one is hard for us to talk about, but it really is an accurate reflection of what's going on in some relationships. What we call it is fish or cut bait. In other words, we really believe wholeheartedly that most relationships are worth saving, and you can really work on them and improve them and have a great relationship over your lifetime. However, there are some abusive relationships and some relationships that are so destructive to the people in the relationship, they really have to be ended. And when that is the situation, you need to walk, you need to get out, you need to get help to get out. And that's an important part of it.
I think the key with all of these various phases of a marriage, when you have to keep on the lookout for the various stages of marriage, things go south from time to time. But you got to be aware of them. You got to deal with them. Expect that they're going to happen, and you do your best to work them out. The 7-year itch we have found to be a real thing, and so be aware of that and understand that keeping your relationship intact for the most part should be a goal. And it's a good thing. But as Liz said, some relationships are not worth saving. And I think we probably all know which ones those are. So we'll see you next time on Marriage Advice TV.
And thanks for joining us today.